Hello.
Hi.
Can you state your name, your year, and your major?
So, my name is Britt. I'm a senior and I'm a nursing major.
So you do some online protesting and activism. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So, yeah, I try to be as proactive as possible, especially on my social medias. I think Twitter is really really good social media platform for that. There's like a lot of push towards change on the platform, and it's just like the perfect place to state your opinions, whether you want to argue about it or not. But that's where I do most of my activism.
Are there any particular groups that you work with?
Not in particular at the moment. I mean, I would love to do more. It's just school is a lot for me, so I haven't really had the chance to like actually be a part of an official group.
Um, so you were part of the listening session
Yeah.
March. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What did you do? Maybe even a little bit of what you said, and maybe the reactions by the administrators.
Okay, so yes, I had a very big part in the listening session in March. I wrote a bit of a speech and I talked about the fact that like, there isn't enough resources on this campus when it comes to like cultural studies and whatnot. If I could, I would minor in like a cultural study, like African American studies or like um, LGBTQ. Like, there's so many different, you know, variations of people on this campus and different identities, and there's like a lot of intersectional things that happen here, and I just feel like they don't take that into account because the majority of the administration is white. We do have a lot of white females in power, a few white males, and there isn't a lot of diversity to speak to that. So I feel like another big problem on this campus is that they can't really speak to a lot of the situations that their students are in, a lot of the struggles that we face as, LGBTQ or people of color or just whatever identity, like marginalized identity that people identify with or are. Um, and when we do go through things, it's kind of hard for them to understand what we're going through because they don't come from that background. They don't understand the struggle that their students go through. So it can be very challenging in that regard. So I did a little bit of speaking to that, and honestly, the administration, they did an awful job at handling it. They put a lot of the blame on Michelle Cromwell, which I think is very unfair to them. Um, they did this so that we could mend the bridge of communication because there's a very big lack of communication between the faculty, the administration, and the students and the staff. So this listening session, the whole purpose was for the students to be able to voice their concerns, any issues that they've been having, and from there we would formulate a plan on how we can fix it, and we just did not do that. um, I guess they were upset by what they were hearing, and they thought that we were out of line when we were just voicing our struggles, which is why I'm saying a lot of times they can't understand the things that we go through. So they handled it very, very, very poorly. I know for a lot of people, they were in class during this time. They weren't actually able to go to the listening session, and there was a promise that it would be recorded and distributed to the students who were not able to make it, so that everyone kind of had a view of like what was being brought up, if there's stuff that we want to bring up that wasn't brought up during the listening session and whatnot. But they never released it. It was like a whole publicity thing. Regis is all about publicity, and I really do think that they need to change the way they go about things. I just don't think that it was right to withhold this information from the students. Um,
One sec.
I really do believe that that's where it kind of went wrong in that regard. I do believe that putting the blame on Michelle Cromwell for an event that they organized, but all of, like, it wasn't her speaking or them speaking, it was the students speaking. So if anything, the blame should not have been put on Dr. Cromwell. The blame should have been put on the students. And there's like an underlying tone there that is basically what they're saying, that they're blaming us for speaking our truth. And that's awful. I'm gonna be real, that's not good. So just to wrap this up, I really do believe that Regis needs to change, and the way we need to change is by having administration be held accountable for their actions and not shifting the blame towards the marginalized identities that are speaking out for what we believe in.
So I know you're a part of quite a few groups here on campus. What kind of events or things do you see them doing, either in reaction to the listening session, or in terms of just prejudices found on campus?
So there were a few events after the listening session. I know SGA has been very proactive in that regard. We've during the meetings we've voiced our concerns, as well as there have been other Change the Climate, for example. Change the Climate was a huge one because there were some incidents that happened between students on campus, and it addressed a lot of like the issues that we have with each other, not just like the administration and the faculty, but the issues that we have with each other on campus. And it was I think it was a really productive start, but like I think there needs to be more done. I know that BSU also had a collab with Lasso, and we talked about what it's like being Afro-Latina and like the intersectionality, and that kind of like plays into a role of like identities and how you feel marginalized on campus as well. I know years back we had a panel about LGBTQ people and religion, because there's also like, I know this is a Catholic institution, so it's kind of like a touchy subject, but this is the one thing that I think Regis does well, is that in that regard, that like religious wise, they're very inclusive. Like I can proudly say that I love going to church, and I'm queer, and I do not feel uncomfortable. I feel very comfortable, talking to Father Paul, talking to all the religious figures in here, because they're so like welcoming and warm and open, and they don't really care about like your background, who you love, what you do, as long as you're just like, you're a human and you're just trying to be a good person.
And I have another question. So how do you believe that your online activism and protesting has influenced your participation in activism here on campus, or how you view our activism here?
So again, I know that social media isn't like 100% reliable, but there are, I do follow like a lot of like news stations and stuff like that. So a lot of times, like I don't have cable, I don't have a TV in my dorm, so I can't really like watch the news and get, the information that I need other than, going online and actually like looking for it myself. So I really do think that because of that, it pushes me to be more vocal. Like when I see people tweet like about articles about like the administration, like the Trump administration and what they're doing, with like there was a whole thing with LGBTQ rights where they're trying to they're trying to like take away health care for trans people. They're trying to like limit a bunch of things. The immigration's a hot mess. They're very, very, very bigoted, very racist towards immigrants who are most of the time seeking refuge from a dangerous situation, treating them awfully. So I feel like when I do see stuff like that online, it makes me want to speak out and say like, here, this is wrong. There needs to be something done about it. Like, and for people who come from that background, whether they're a first generation student, whether they're LGBTQ, whether they're Black or Caribbean or whatever their identity is, a lot of times we carry the weight of what's going on outside of college with us. So I do think that's very important, when we are on campus, to talk about the things that are kind of going on in our head and can influence our studies and, how we go about things on campus.